Just like with any traits, you have your scales. Now, this trait is particularly strict. You need to be good, reliable self-discipline and to be able to create good value, to exchange value with others. As of 30, going downwards, the person shows some self-discipline, but may take shortcuts and may cave under pressure, and it gets worse and worse. Make sure that you take your test through the scale and that you use the scale, you refer back to the scale when you read your client's test. Obviously, I open a little side note. In the second part of the partnership, we learn to interpret the test. So in this first part of the partnership, we learn to read each trait by trait individually. The scale is very useful for that. When you will have learned this part and you move on to the interpreting the test, the scale is less relevant, and you'll understand why, because we're going to look at all the traits and sub-traits communicating together and creating a synergy between behaviors. So that's a more complex work. That's why first we learn how to read it, then we learn how to interpret it, and then we learn to deliver it. Moving on, let's look at how self-discipline shows up when the score is high. So people with a high score of self-discipline demonstrate a certain rigor. They force themselves to do things that need to be done, even if it causes them discomfort, even if they have to give up some personal time, even if they would much rather go work out at the gym or go and watch Netflix. They rarely take things lightly. So those with this trait at 30 tend to be a little more hasty and at times, especially under pressure or when stressed, or when feeling a little bit down, tend to be superficial. A high score also indicates a better level of exchange. We've established what that is than others. So they give more because they get more work done, but also because they care at a deeper level to do things of quality all the time. For example, a secretary with self-discipline below 30 will simply send a communication to the customer. Another secretary with high self-discipline, on the other hand, will tend to make sure that the customer has actually received and read the communication. So imagine that you're at the customer service and you have someone responding to customer service tickets. One will follow through the action cycle until she is sure, with a high level of self-discipline, that that customer has received, read, understood the message. It's really a follow-through, a conscientious follow-through. Low self-discipline. How do we see it? When this trait is below 30, the person buffers situations. They don't address them at their root and they leave them a little bit unresolved, or they give it to somebody else. It becomes someone else's problem. A manager or a supervisor who manages their team without going into the detail with them has a superficial management style. Oh yeah, do this, this, and this. And then walks away without really making sure whether the instructions have been understood completely and the person is capable of doing that. So they delegate without the training. And they limit themselves to superficial explanations about what needs to be done, creating chaos because the person that they've given instructions to doesn't really know how to do the job. So a mess will come of it, and it is a mess that will bounce back onto them or onto somebody else. Managers or individuals with a low self-discipline trait have difficulty growing their business or nurturing their teams because they're a little bit superficial. They may be great leaders, They may be able to really inspire and motivate others, but their follow through in detail in organization will be weak. Ultimately, if you bring a lot of hype, but you don't bring a lot of discipline, you basically assume that people are going to follow through for you. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't work out. So in teams, or when you are building your team, or if you already have a team, this kind of assumptions can create a lot of operational chaos, communication chaos, conflict, etc. So with employees with this low trait, delegated work will come back unfinished because simply their discipline to follow through is compromised. So an employee with low self-discipline needs to be really structured and monitored and supervised and taught to raise their follow-through. How does this trait interact with other traits? So with organizational vision at 60 or higher, self-discipline 60 or higher, the person tends to be quite meticulous, at times perfectionist, but in some roles, this is a great combo. Determination is the second red column on your test. So when self-discipline is higher than determination, the person has difficulty delegating and getting things done by others and tends to do things themselves, because determination is grit, willpower, but it also the ability to ask and obtain results from other people. We will see that in a little bit. So this is what interpreting the test, crisscrossing all the traits together looks like. I've inserted a few glimpses here and there to start training you to look at how all the behaviors communicate with each other, because that's what ultimately you will deliver to your client, one step at a time. Improve the low trait, because that's the one that we need to work on. The person needs help in realizing that they leave many tasks unmanaged, which will become tomorrow's problems, or for themselves if they're solopreneurs, or for other people in the team. And they might tend to overload other people. If they are a manager, they should be made aware of how they tend to briefly explain what to do without actually instructing the employee. Very dangerous, very chaotic. Make or have them make a list of unmanaged tasks, open action cycles, and write an action plan to manage all of them, scheduling the actions in the agenda and checking that they are being carried out. So you have to kind of become a little bit of a controller, a flight control person that kind of keeps them conscientious. In general, people with low self-discipline tend to ignore statistics or numerical indicators. They then justify them when they are not optimal. So the person needs to be made accountable for numerical targets using statistics on the activities they tend to neglect. Now, this is easy if you are a business coach or a consultant. It's also relatively easy if you have a team manager and you assign KPIs and goals, numerical goals to your team members. If you're a life coach, transformational coach, holistic coach, this is not as easy, but you need to find statistics. You need to give your client certain indicators that can be measured, because when they have low self-discipline and you are dealing with life coaching or transformation coaching or holistic coaching, which is also very invisible and intangible, and between the invisibility and intangibility of the coaching, the nature of the coaching, and the low self-discipline of your client, this is very dangerous. It might mean that the person doesn't really do anything that you tell them or advise them or guide them to do, and you have no way of measuring that, of verifying that, of keeping them on track. The person should be helped to observe when they are giving less than they receive, even if they believe the opposite. They need to observe whether they are just working or whether they are really creating value and creating results for their role, whichever this role is. Now, I want to give you an example of an open cycle exercise that we have mentioned. Basically, you write down, this is one way of doing it. You write 2 columns, it could be 3, personal, work, family, get creative. But basically what this is imagine it like it's a brain. You empty your brain into the piece of paper and you write them underneath the column, personal, work, family, whatever. Then you prioritize them. So you write down everything that you have procrastinated and you haven't even started, but you really need to get going on. And you write down everything that you've started and not yet finished. And you do this brain dump on a piece of paper and you write them all. Then you prioritize 1, 2, 3. 1 that has to be done today or tomorrow at the latest. 2 that needs to be done within this week. 3 needs to be done within the month. And then you schedule them, or you help your client schedule them in their calendar. And if others, like for example in a team situation, if others need to do these action cycles, you schedule the checks to make sure that they are done properly. So you see how self-discipline for ourselves, for our business, or to help others, it's all about starting, developing, closing, checking. This is it. It's the rigor to do that in whatever form, in whichever role, in whatever sector. This is the principle. Because in this action cycle, we take care of our role, of our results, of our team, of our life, of our health, of our happiness, whatever. It's really taking care. And in fact, like in other lessons, here I have a little bit of an insightful closing reflection to share with you. For me, self-discipline is the gravity that keeps all our projects in orbit. So my health projects, my kids project, my couple projects, my business projects, all of my projects are kept in orbit thanks to my self-discipline. Without it, ideas drift off into space. With it, you can hold them steady until they come to completion. On a deeper level, self-discipline is the practice of honoring your word to yourself, keeping promises to yourself and to others. It is that quiet daily decision to act in alignment with what you've said that you want, even when no one is watching. Because some people might become conscientious when there's someone holding them accountable, but real self-discipline is that you hold yourself accountable. So as guides, we need to help our clients become self-accountable, to honor the promises that they make to themselves. So in this sense, discipline is an act of self-respect. It's telling universe and life, I am trustworthy with the dreams I have been given, or with the talents I have been given, or with the mission I have been given. So this is it. I hope you've enjoyed this. We've closed the personal efficiency traits, organizational vision, self-motivation, and self-discipline. We're going to move on to another part of the test. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am, and I'll see you in the next lesson.